Hey everyone, in this video we shall create a registration form using just HTML and CSS. And to start this project, the first thing you do is to create a folder. In my case, I shall name my folder registration form. Create a folder on your desktop, then head over to the folder. Create a subfolder called IMG. In this folder, we shall store all our images in this folder. Then create another folder with the name CSS. That's where we shall save our CSS file. In the registration form folder, that's where we shall keep our index.html file, where we shall be writing all our HTML files in. Now let's head over to VS Code. We are in VS Code now. To open the folder in VS Code, we come over here, select File, select Open Folder, and we head over to our folder, registration form. Our folder is open. We have nothing in our index.html file, and we have nothing in our index.css file. The first thing to do is to generate a boilerplate. Here's our boilerplate. The next thing, let's change our title to registration form. There we have it. Our title has been changed to registration form. Now let's change the font family on our website, and to do that I shall be using the Google Fonts API. Let's head over to fonts.google.com and let's use Montserrat. That's it right there. So you select that, copy this link, head over to your head tag. This link is always placed in the head tag. Then you paste it. You copy this link, this code right here. You paste it in the body selector in your CSS file. And that's it. The next thing to do is to link our HTML file with our CSS file. And we know how to do that. Come here, you say link, enter, you go to our CSS folder and select the index.css file. Now let's set one attribute, which is the type attribute. Let's say text/CSS. There you have it. We have linked our HTML file to our CSS file, and we have changed the font family to Montserrat. Now let's run a test to see what we have. In the body tag, let's use a H5 heading tag and say this is a test. Now to view these in our browser, let's head over to our folder, right click on the index.html file, select open with, and go to Google Chrome, and you can see what we have here. The font family is changed to Montserrat. Now let's head back to our VS Code and start writing code for our registration form. Let's get rid of this. The first thing we shall be doing is we shall create a section with a class attribute set to reg form. And to mention, the value of this class attribute is not default. You can put in anything you want to. You can call it form, my form, anything, any name at all. Then let's head over. Let's create a div. Like we said in our previous videos, a div is a wrapping tag also. Let's set the div to icon div. Let's create an IMG tag with an src attribute set to the location of our image file. And to do that, we go to our IMG folder and we select the icon.png file. Now let's close that. Now let's use a h4 heading tag to say welcome. Our h4 heading tag should have a class attribute for styling purposes, and we set the attribute to icon paragraph. Now let's go out of the icon div tag. Let's create another div tag here for the form with a class attribute set to form div. In the div tag, let's create a form tag with a method attribute set to post and an end type attribute set to multi-path / form data. In our form tag, let's create an input tag with a type attribute set to username, a name attribute set to username, and a placeholder attribute set to username. Let's close this. Let's create another input tag with a type attribute set to email, a name attribute set to email, and a placeholder attribute set to email. Let's close that. Now let's create another input field for our password with a type attribute set to password, a name attribute set to password, and a placeholder attribute set to password. Now let's create another input field to confirm our password with a type attribute set to password, a name attribute set to password, and a placeholder attribute set to password. Let's close that. Okay, let's say confirm password. Now let's head over to the next line. Now let's create a checkbox to enable the users agree to the terms and conditions of our website. And to do that, we say input type equals to checkbox, name checkbox. Let's set a class and call it check class. Let's close that. The next thing, let's create a paragraph tag and say I accept terms and conditions. Finally, the last thing on our form will be to create a button to enable the users submit their credentials after filling the form. And to do that, we say input type equals to submit. Now let's set a class for styling purposes, and let's set that class to submit. Close that. Now this is all the HTML code we shall be needing for our registration form. Before we head to our CSS file and start styling the whole page, let's see what's in our img folder, which is the image we are using for this project. Just this image. So this is the only image file we shall be using throughout this project. Now let's head back to our VS Code. In our index.css file, we have the body selector selecting the body tag. Now let's set the margin to 0. Let's set the padding to 0. And let's set the font size to 13px. The next tag we shall select will be the reg form class. In our HTML file, this is the reg form class. The reg form class here belongs to the first section in our HTML file. So we shall select the reg form class and give it a width of 800px, a height of 500px. Let's say 500px. Let's give it a background color of, let's say, 47 CEAD. Now let's give it a position, absolute. Let's set the left by 50%. Let's set the top also by 50%. Now let's set the transform attribute with a translate value of minus 50% and minus 50%. Now let's save this. Let's head back to our browser to see what we have. As you can see, we have our form fields not properly styled. So let's keep styling. Head back. Now let's create a pseudo element on our reg form. Let's say before, let's say content set to nothing for now. Let's set the background color to white. Background color. Let's set the width to 300 pixels. Let's set the height to 500 pixels. And let's set the position to absolute. There we have it. Let's head back to our browser to see what we have. As you can see, there are little changes here. This icon has a white space covering some parts of it now. So let's head back to our CSS and continue styling our page. The next tag we shall be styling will be the icon div img. So we are styling the img tag in the icon div class. So that makes sense, yeah? Icon div class. So let's style our img file. Let's set the width to 80px. Let's set the height to 80px. Let's set the position to absolute. Let's set the top value to 15%. And let's set the left value to 15%. And let's set the transform property with a translate value of minus 50%. And minus 50%. Let's save that. Let's head back to our browser to see what we have. Let's refresh and see what we have. The next tag to style in our file is the icon paragraph. The icon paragraph in our HTML file is the H4 heading tag that says welcome. So to style that, let's head into our CSS and let's set the position to absolute first. Let's set the top to 40%. Let's set the left to 15%. And let's set the transform property with a translate value of 50%, minus 50%, and minus 50%. Now let's save this. Let's refresh our browser to see what we have. As we can see, our heading tag that says welcome is displayed right here where it wasn't displayed before. So let's head back to our CSS and continue styling. The next tag we shall be styling is the form div. It's a class, so we'll say form div. The form div in our HTML file is located here. It's the wrapping tag that wraps our form and every element in the form. So let's head back. The form div will take a position of absolute with a top value of 50% and a left value, let's say 60 or let's say 70%. Let's give it a transform property with a translate value of -50% and -50%. Let's set the overflow property to hidden. And let's set the width to 300 pixels. Now let's go back to our browser to see what we have. Let's refresh the page. And that's our form. So let's continue styling our form till it comes out well. Now let's style every input tag in our form. And to do that, we can select that by saying form div input. This will select every input tag in our HTML file. So let's head back to our CSS file and let's set every input tag with a width of 100%, a height of 30px, not percent, 30px. And let's set the margin bottom to 10px. And let's set the padding left for all of them to 30px. And let's create a border color. Let's set a border color to our primary color of the website. Now let's refresh our page to see what we have. As you can see, it's beginning to look better. So let's continue styling our form. The next group of selector in our CSS file will be the form div and the check class. The check class is for the checkbox. So we are styling our checkbox now. And our checkbox will have a width of 20px, a margin of 18px for the top, 0px for the right, 0px for the bottom, and 2px for the left, with a height value of 15px. So let's save this and let's head back to our browser to see what we have. Our checkbox is no more here at the center of the form. It's now aligned to the left side of the form. So let's head back to our CSS file and continue styling. The next selector will be the form div paragraph tag. So let's head back to our HTML file to see the paragraph tag in the form div. And this is the paragraph tag. I accept terms and conditions. So let's style this by setting the float property to left and giving it a margin right property of 60px. Now let's go back to our browser, refresh to see what we have. Okay, we have an issue here. We set the float property to left In our conventional websites, the checkbox is always aligned to the left side, not the right side of the page. So let's set the float property to right and see what we have. Let's save that. Come back here, refresh our page. Now the checkbox is here. I accept terms and conditions, and that's perfect. So let's head back to our CSS file and let's style, I think, the last element on our file, which is the submit button. So let's say form div, it has a class of submit. Our submit input tag has a class of submit, so that's why I'm saying .form div .submit. So let's set that. Let's give it a background color of white. Let's give it a color of black. Let's give it a cursor at a pointer value, and let's set the padding to 0. Let's save this and refresh our browser. As you can see, our form is looking good. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to share.